Good afternoon, class. My name is JC Cantrell. I am a student in the project management course, and I did my project throughout the last 7 weeks on the food share delivery program here in Westfield, Wisconsin. I felt it very important for you to understand some of the current program assessments. So there are some pros and cons to the current program. Definitely some pros within the program is that it's free. It's free to everybody. They do not check your ID. They don't check your income. So bottom line up front, it is free food for whoever wishes to come pick up a package. One of the great benefits that they currently have in place is that, let's say I go to pick up a package and my neighbor is unable to go, I can also pick a package up for my neighbor. Also, it is a great program to be a part of as it is volunteer ran by the members of the community. Some of the cons or constraints to the program is that it has very limited or no advertisement. It is currently conducted one time a month, every third Thursday, but it's only by word of mouth. If you know about it, you know about it. If you don't, you miss out. A constraint is that it does hold restrictions to rural routes, elderly, weather. It has limited hours as it runs 4 to 6 after school. So just those 2 hours. And it really does have a target audience, in my opinion. I know the program isn't meant to be that way, but the target audience is the parents of the people that are picking up the students from school at the elementary. So kindergarten through 6th grade from 4 to 6. That's the target audience. Some of my program recommendations, and this is what I base my project off of, is implementing a delivery program. So setting up a delivery program that would allow members of the community to benefit from the program where they generally would not or could not participate in. Largely, this is due to age. They don't have a driver's license, weather, transportation. Maybe they don't have gas money to drive into town, or they have the capability to drive there. And then the time availability, single mothers, working, single fathers, and just the 4 to 6 sometimes is not conducive to everybody's schedule. So in my project, this was my work breakdown structure. So as you can see, we have the delivery program here, which is the program. And then these were the major tasks, or I like to consider them almost as the teams that we will break down into. So you have the transportation, packaging, liability, registration, and location. So 5 different people or teams working on 5 different categories. Some of them would be happening concurrently. Some would not happen until the beginning, middle, or end of the project. So as you can see, transportation, things to consider is routes and drivers, right? So bottom line up front, a key fundamental here is if we don't have drivers, we don't have a program. Packaging. So currently a vendor, a food supplier, supplies all of the food. However, we do need to make sure that the vendor is aware of customer increase and that we have an adequate amount of boxes and volunteers for that. Liability, safety is frontmost in everybody's foresight. So volunteer waivers, customer waivers, mail-in forms and online forms for registration, because we need to assess that clientele, that number of people we're going to provide packages for. And then location. Currently we have a pickup location. However, there's not a delivery staging location. So this is just a one snapshot view of my PERT with the critical path. As the next couple slides go in, we're going to break it down into pictures that are more visible for you. But I really wanted you to see that this critical path here in red has to happen in order for project success. So following that critical path and understanding what those critical tasks are very important. So we're going to go into a closer look of some of the tasks and times that go into this. So you'll see here I have a start. And the way I did my diagram here is everything that is on top of each other stacked can all happen at the same time. So the teams may have to be larger, or the duration of the task is going to have to be longer. So first we have to identify registration forms. So we have to create the form, a customer form, a volunteer form, and then also at that time vendor supplies. So that's going to be start working throughout this entire first phase here. So we're going to create the online fillable form and then the mail-in form. And then at that point, once those forms are created, we're going to meet with the municipal building here in the township of Westfield, and we're going to add it onto the town's website. So instead of having an additional cost or someone that has to maintain an additional website, all the information will be housed on the township's website. More or less just a task or a service under the already current services provided. With the vendor here, we have to think about packing supplies, packing area, and then the staging of the delivery area. So all of those are kind of happening all at once by multiple teams and multiple personnel. Going into next, once those are complete, we move on to advertisement. And that's either going to be done through flyers, websites, and local advertisement. So the website will more than likely just be the local township's website. Local advertisement, pin-up boards at the grocery stores, gas stations, schools, churches, community areas, and then flyer advertisement in addition to that. Going into customer registration and volunteer registration, and you will notice that this was the longest task that we were given throughout the 3-month duration to complete the project, simply due to we want to have the largest amount of time for our customers to register. And then as our customers are registering, you're going to notice that here we are at the same time starting to build those transportation routes based off the registration forms that we receive. And additionally, what I would think is the most important, and it would kind of coincide with the closing phase, is rehearsals. I think it is very key for us to have route rehearsals with the registered customers that we have and with the volunteers that we have to ensure that we are actually able to provide the service in an adequate time and safe manner. And then that brings us to our end. Some of the risk and concerns. Throughout the project, this really, 2 things kept coming up repetitively. One is the volunteers. So volunteers is a really big concern, and it can also be a risk because volunteers is what drives this program. This program does not have a budget, maybe just an initial setup cost. However, we don't get any pay compensation for our services while working in a status of volunteer during the project, whether it's packaging, delivering, setting up for the vendor. So I think it's really important to keep that motivation going and keep it high energy and self-reward. I cannot put enough emphasis on the praise of the self-reward here because everyone always has that ramp up of volunteers in anything that you do. But as soon as that luster, that high wears off, the volunteers start to fade away. So it is really important to maintain that community volunteer status and that self-reward praise. Safety is another really big concern. You may think safety, I don't get it. So even though we have a waiver process that we're going to incorporate, we really need to stick to approved routes. So we can't just be traveling outside of a designated area. So identifying a radius in which we are going to provide services for. Waivers would be signed by delivery personnel, all volunteers actually, and the customer. I think it's very important for the customer to acknowledge that waiver because that also not only about the transportation safety aspect, but allergies also. And then vetting. So by vetting, I mean doing a local police check or CCAP, listing a referral on the volunteer form, and also asking to self-admit any law violations that you may have had. Something that we can admit to alleviate a lot of that risk is the buddy team. We'll send our drivers out in pairs of 2. But unfortunately, that comes back to making sure we have enough volunteers. So in summary, our project mission is to make food share available to all the persons in our community. Thank you and have a great day.